I'm Sam Williams, I'm almost 48, and I've been an engineer probably since I was about 4 years old, when my uncle used to give me car radios to dismantle. I wasn't very good at putting them back together. And after I took apart a very expensive Christmas toy, I only ever got Lego after that, so they've stopped buying me posh presents. It didn't work after I took it apart, so maybe I wasn't a very good engineer, but I started early. I was doing A-levels, nothing to do with engineering, and I just quit. My parents wanted me to go to university, I didn't go. Counterwill's strong for lots of people with ADHD. I did university later. I have 3 not quite finished masters. Again, another typical sign of ADHD. But I took the learning, so I'm a compulsive learner, and decided to do an apprenticeship. So I did an apprenticeship when I was 16 in the dockyard in Portsmouth and joined the civil service. And I was in the civil service for 29 years, doing lots of different jobs, so I moved around quite a bit. I was always interested in patterns and people, so I would describe myself as a rubbish engineer, because I didn't do the detail. And I was always curious, always asking questions. I was that annoying person who saw things slightly differently and asked why a lot. And that served me really well. But also it came with a bit of challenges, because I was quite different in the workplace. And I spent a lot of time fitting in and trying to be like everybody else, not realising I was different. Well, to be honest, it had been a bit of a running joke for probably 20 years. You're at ADHD, Sam. And I never thought anything of it. And even I used to joke about it. It never occurred to me that that was a thing I needed to pay attention to, really until I've got 2 children, and my youngest has some characteristics of ADHD, and I started looking into it because of her. Knowing I probably was somewhere on the spectrum, so I started learning a bit more about it, and then perimenopause hit. And I thought I had everything nailed. All the strategies I was obviously using to cope and to do stuff just went out the window, and all of a sudden I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't read, my memory was awful, my impulsivity was through the roof. I've always been quite impulsive, but this was orders of magnitude worse. And my ability to motivate myself for things I was interested in or wasn't interested in was really noticeable, so I often had to leave everything to the last minute to get that adrenaline rush to get stuff done. And that had worked before, but yeah, so it was probably when I was 47 that I realised I was actually had ADHD. Luckily for me, I was working at the time for a company who did a lot of stuff around mental health and neurodiversity. It suddenly started dawning on me that maybe that is me. That's weird, why all of a sudden? And then I realised that there was a big link between menopause and ADHD symptoms and the relationship between estrogen dropping off, and all of a sudden it started to realise that that might be why things are a little bit more difficult at the moment. So I have some huge strength. I have a really interest-based nervous system. So the things that I'm really interested in, I'm like 100% passionate. I have 100% focus, 100% energy, and I can work really fast and really hard and really quick. And that can be great until you do it to excess and you burn out. And the things I'm not interested in, the flip side of that procrastination, well, that's really a powerful thing in terms of authenticity. So I can't fake it, and especially right now with the menopause making it really extreme. So it's almost impossible for me to be unauthentic about things I care about, which means I can really show up as myself and say, actually, that's not for me. So I've started doing less of the things that I honestly don't care about so much, and more of the things I do care about, because actually I'm playing to my strengths, and there are other people who are good at that stuff and are interested in that stuff. So in that way, it's a real blessing. There's quite a lot of emotional dysregulation with ADHD, so I can be really impulsive, I can be really take things to heart, perhaps more sensitive than perhaps others, and that can sometimes be problematic, but equally it's a massive empathic power, so that ability to empathically connect with other people is a huge strength. So living in a neurotypical world when you're not neurotypical can be beyond hard at times. I think the real benefit now is that I'm really aware of who I am and I accept who I am. So I think previously, because I didn't understand what was going on, how I worked differently to other people, how my wiring was differently, I kind of used to beat myself up an awful lot. Why can't I do it the same way as everyone else? Why do I have to leave it to the last minute? You know, I thought I was broken. I thought I was, you know, there was something inherently wrong with me. I'm not stupid. I know I'm not stupid. But can I organise my calendar? Can I remember when appointments are? Can I you know, I will write something and I'll read it back and go, I didn't write that. So, you know, proofreading information, being able to work out whether I've actually organised my day. So memory and organisation is a really big challenge for lots of people with ADHD. So the first step for me was awareness and then learning new strategies that work better with my wiring. There's a whole community out there who are like me. Yeah, knowing I wasn't alone and I could learn from others, that was really helpful. Oh, I think this is massive. I think, you know, I was a real people pleaser. I am a real people pleaser. Connection was really important to me. And not feeling like I belonged and feeling I had to be someone else to fit in took a massive toll on my self-worth and self-confidence. Quickly learned I had to behave a certain way in order to get accepted. And I had such a strong desire for belonging. We all do. It's really important that we belong to our community. And I think accidentally, no one's fault, I gave up being me in order to belong. And that came at a price. And I didn't realise that price until I was probably about 42 when I had a massive burnout and chronic fatigue, allegedly, whatever label that is. Basically, I couldn't function for probably about 3 years. Now, if you need medication, and lots of people do need medication, then you can't get access to medication without a diagnosis. Unfortunately, a lot of people with ADHD and significant symptoms can suffer really terribly mental health and suicidally so, in which case, you know, the access to medication is extraordinarily paramount. I haven't been in that space. I am trying to work out what I can do without medication. So there are lots of things around exercise, around self-compassion, around diet, around sleep quality, around hydration, that are all pivotal things that are really good for ADHD health and also menopause health. Also with perimenopause, one of the big issues with menopause is your ability to kind of manage those hormones. So those stress hormones really can get, you know, out of balance, and that can make things even worse. So having issues around mental health are a really big thing, and acceptance and self-compassion is such an important part of that. So I've done a lot of work, a lot of inner work around that, but it's really paid dividends now. So I think that work has helped. The one hope I have for my children is that they always know that they will belong and will be loved just as they are. So I'm really lucky. I now work as an ADHD coach. Having been on that journey myself and realising how important it was to find a community that really understood me and could help me understand myself and could show me different strategies that were more appropriate to work with my neurodiversity was a blessing, a real blessing. So I get to work with other people now to help them become aware of who they are, to start to accept that in all of its technicolor glory, to see how they're working with their ADHD or not quite often, and to learn different strategies that might be more effective to allow them to work with their particular wiring that they have instead of trying to use stuff that doesn't work for them. So becoming aware, giving yourself a bit of love, and then that creates a space where you can safely try new different things. So yeah, so that's, for me, that's how I try and help. My history is part of me, my journey is part of me. I've learnt so much on this little squiggly path that I'm not sure, I'm not sure I'd want to go back and do things differently. Would I want different for my children going forward? Yes. I was carrying around quite a lot of self-limiting beliefs that had been created when I was younger, through nobody's fault, just everyone doing the best with what we knew at the time. But the impact that had on me, my own kind of reign under my umbrella, is that I thought I was trouble, that I thought I was wrong, that I didn't trust myself. I inherently thought there was something wrong with me. I would have behaved and thought differently had I not known that, had I not believed that. So I think that would have allowed me to actually use all my strengths. So I think I played quite small when I was younger, and I don't play small no more. So I decided to have a bit of a pivot to go more in depth into coaching, because recognising that I have an interest-based nervous system and those symptoms are quite high because of menopause at the moment, I might as well do what I'm interested in and what makes sense to me. So obviously menopause and ADHD were things that I was acutely aware of and wanted to learn more, to be able to help myself, to be able to help my kids, and I knew there were loads of other people out there. So I trained as an ADHD coach. I'm in the process of training as a specific menopause coach, and the hope is the understanding I'll gain from both of that allows me to make more sense. So it's that awareness piece again. First get awareness, and then look at what are the options, what are the strategies that might exist that might be useful for me, because again, everyone's different. And I realised that I actually knew nothing about my hormones. You know, we got taught nothing about it at school, and you can't give what you haven't got. So my kids are often a massive motivator for me. I've got 2 girls, and I suddenly thought, how am I going to explain this to them? I don't even know it for myself. So I basically took myself back to school and started to learn about my body and what magical things it's been doing all this time. So, you know, again, using my strengths of that focus and passion and authenticity, I was really committed to bringing some of that awareness, because it is out there. It's just connecting people to that information that is now starting to resurface and changing some of the narratives around our bodies, our hormones, how they work. You know, it affects all of our bodies and all of our bodily functions. And I walked into the menopause with no knowledge and no skills, and that didn't turn out so well. And it could be different, and it should be different. And I want to be part of that difference. I'm no longer ashamed of who I am. I was for a long time and didn't realise it. I'm not anymore. And with that acceptance comes real opportunity to change. So I would say get curious, do some homework. There are a lot of really great books to do your own stuff. I don't read so well with my symptoms, so I listen to books a lot. So there's loads of great audiobooks too, lots of options. And there's a lot of communities online to talk to as well. But it's really hard to, when you don't know, to look for help. And I think it's up to others to help too. And I think the workplace could do a better job of joining that stuff up together. Often it's down to the individual to ask, and they're in the last place to ask. Even if they were aware, reaching out for help is often really important, because you already don't feel like you belong. Sticking your hand up to say, I really don't belong, is a really vulnerable thing to do. So I think the workplace has got to make it super simple, super easy, and super available. So my advice to anyone going through the menopause, and that happens to at least 51% of our community at some point, is to not see it as a negative. For me, it was a massive catalyst for change. I found leading up to, well, part of my perimenopause was a real change from outer focus to inner focus, to really getting clear on who I am. And by doing so, then really working out what I want to do next. So it is often narrated as the end, and it's definitely not. It's a transition for sure, but it's stepping into your power. You know, you've got all of this life experience. Now, you might be stepping into it a little bit blind if, like me, you didn't know a lot. So my advice would be to start paying attention and getting intentional about who you are and your body. So things like cycle tracking and being aware of those patterns, because they're there, it's just we're not paying attention to them. They will help give you some clues to what might be changing, what might be going on. So starting logging stuff and paying attention to it, simple stuff. There's loads of online trackers that do that. And just read some of the easy literature. So I read the Davina McCall book on menopausing, and Dr. Naomi Porter, I think, online, on Audible. It's a really easy, comprehensive kind of one-stop shop of things about menopause. And you get to write your own story, so you don't have to believe the narrative. In lots of other cultures, menopause is not seen as a negative thing. It is seen as a stepping into your wisdom, really stepping into your power. in this society, it's seen as you're the end of the trash heap and you're expected to fall down. I'm absolutely committed to that's not going to be my children's experience of this. They are not going to walk into this expecting it to be the end of the road. They're going to see it as an exciting opportunity for them to really catalyse into the next phase of their life. And that's how I'm seeing menopause. I'm eternally grateful for the opportunity that it's provided me. Surf the wave instead of getting smashed up in the rip, which quite often just get washed out, don't we? So I came across the Foothold initiative around neurodiversity, and I was really excited because as a member of the IIT, and I didn't know this existed, it would have been really great had I known that a few years ago that it existed. So there's a huge amount of information on their hub around neurodiversity, and I know it's growing. Now, getting diagnosis for ADHD can be problematic. There's a huge amount of waiting lists, but that doesn't mean you can't start addressing what's going on for you. So if you have ADHD, while it's not your fault that you're wired differently, it is your responsibility to learn about it and to do the work to kind of, work with your ADHD. And there is lots of stuff that can help you do that practically. And in fact, it's useful for everybody, not just people with ADHD. So there are spaces where you can safely, without judgment, become aware of who you are and strategies that will help you use your strengths in a healthy way in the workplace, and avoid the pitfalls of burnout and mental health. So yeah, check it out.